Welcome back to another episode of the Stat Connect. Today we're missing Joe, but we've still got Dustin, so it's going to be a great show. I guess it's kind of like the Utes. You lose some guys, but next man up. So
Next man
good
up,
to have you here
exactly.
again, Dustin. Rough game. I think we ought to get right into it. Talk about what happened with Washington. What were your thoughts there, Dustin?
Honestly, that's not a rough game. I know we're all disappointed, right? Utah fans are disappointed in the loss, but that's not a rough game. That's about as well as you can expect Utah to play. And I was looking at it in preparing my recap. Barnes is 70% with 2 touchdowns and no turnovers for 220 yards in the first half. Then that first drive is kind of weak coming out of the half. And then the next drive, he gets hit late. They put in Nate for one play. And then the next play, Barnes goes in and throws the pick. That would have been a pick six if not for the Washington player. I won't besmirch Utah's former wide receiver, but
yeah, Utah fans know how that feels.
Utah fans know exactly how that feels. So that's the turning point in the game. He only completes, I think, 2 passes after that.
So I looked up one pass.
Yeah.
For 0 yards and
for 0 yards. Yeah, I saw one. I know it was 0 yards, and then he threw another interception. And so I really think that late hit, Barnes came back from the hospital to be back. There was a point in time where Utah fans were thinking, well, it might have to be Nate because Barnes may not be medically cleared to come back. I mean, he went to the hospital after the Oregon State game. So I really think that was the turning point. Utah doesn't score again after the half, and they were driving. They were driving to take the lead. Right at that point, they're not down 7; they're down 5. And so they're driving to take the lead or cut it to 2 points.
Yeah.
And he throws that first interception, gets hit, and the defense holds. That safety is the last score of the game. So I really think the team played pretty well, but it's and they covered, like I said, but it's true. It's disappointing because there certainly was a chance to win that game.
That's why I think it's disappointing because, like you said, when they were coming down before that illegal hit on Bryson Barnes, if they could have scored a touchdown, it would have been a 35-33 game that we're talking about. And who knows what beyond that. But the thing that I was surprised by was seeing Barnes, just how shaken up he was after that hit and how they put him back after just that one play. I found that to be a little bit questionable. I wondered if they should have allowed Nate to stay in, at least for the rest of that series, just to give Barnes some time to kind of collect himself after that, because he just never seemed to be rattled the rest of the game.
From watching the hit, it didn't look like he was mentally shaken up. It looked to me like he was, maybe sort of a little bit of, you don't want to use the term PTSD, but a little bit gun shy.
Could
right. But I don't think he had any, it didn't look like a concussion or anything like that. It looked like he hurt his shoulder and then just tried to tough it out because he's Bryson Barnes, and Bryson Barnes has spent every day at Utah toughing it out. Like, that's who he is. So, and I will say too, overall, the offense was above statistical average against Utah, and the defense held Washington to below their statistical average. In fact, they held presumably previously the Heisman frontrunner to 56% passing.
Yeah.
The defensive line played well.
Yeah.
The defensive backs played well. So, I mean, you look at it and you're like, well, they gave up 35 points, but 35 points is like 11 below Washington's season average.
Yep.
And, the offense didn't get the chance, I think, in the second half to really get things rolling. And the snap balance was off pretty bad. Washington had about 80 offensive snaps and Utah had about 60. And so the defense, I think, was playing phenomenally considering how many more snaps they have to play than usual.
Yeah, it was just a missed opportunity. And That's just what happens.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
posted on the board. There is still a
sometimes
chance, I think, for Utah to get to the championship game. It requires a 5-way tie at 6-3, but
well, and that's the thing. Now looking forward to Arizona, you have to wonder: are the players seeing it that way? Is there any chance that a little bit of that motivation is down now that they know that the Pac-12 championship is likely off the table? It'll be very interesting to see how they come out against Arizona. Have to go on the road again and face a team that has suddenly become a competitive team that is now a challenger for that Pac-12 championship.
yeah. So Arizona is also kind of sitting back, hoping for a lot of luck. If Oregon beats Arizona State, Arizona's out. So they're probably in the same boat as Utah, which is win more games, get a better ranking, hope for a better bowl game. But Utah, Arizona, USC are all out. The only team outside of Oregon and Washington that has a realistic shot at the title game is Oregon State, because they play both of them. They win both of those games, they're in. In fact, if they beat Oregon next week, that probably is enough. It might not be, but it probably is. So, but win both the games and they're in for sure. And so the difficulties for Arizona is the same thing, but Arizona is feeling very differently, I think, about it, right? Arizona was picked to finish not last, but 8th-ish in the Pac-12, and they're looking now at a top 4, potentially top 3 finish. And so every game is super crucial to them. Is Utah disappointed? Kyle Whittingham is the master of his team making every game important, particularly in the Pac-12, particularly with this being the last year. I don't anticipate he'll have any trouble getting them motivated to play Arizona. Arizona's ranked this week. I don't think there's any chance of them really overlooking them. Arizona beat Oregon State, which was kind of Utah's real punch in the mouth game. And so I don't think I'm worried about him overlooking Arizona. What I'm worried about is Arizona's a good team.
They are.
Yeah. I mean, defensively balanced, offensively balanced. I was looking statistically, there's not really a hole. They're on offense. The worst thing they do is rush and give up sacks. They're about 70th in the country in rushing, but that's still 160 yards a game. And so they're about 60th in giving up sacks, but they give up 2 a game.
That's the big hole that I saw, was that the sack situation. And I took a look at that offensive line. It's really young. A couple of freshmen on there, a sophomore. I think they only have 1 senior on that offensive line. Like you said, they've given up 20 sacks. And Utah, against offensive lines that are young, inexperienced, like Arizona's, and also as good as Noah Fafita has been, Utah against freshman quarterbacks, and I recognize that Fafita is a redshirt freshman, but Utah against freshman quarterbacks has just been, I mean, a massacre to those poor freshmen. You look at Arizona State, you look at Oregon or UCLA, you look at Baylor.
Look at Caleb Williams last year.
Yeah, and Caleb Williams even. Yeah, so I look at this as a game that actually is a much better matchup for Utah. Even though, like you said, Arizona they're solid. They're kind of top 5, top 6 in the Pac-12 in every category. And especially I was looking at, I think it was rush defense is number 14 in the nation. So they're solid there. And Utah, they've done okay against good rush defenses. But I just see this as a team that's pretty good at everything. But I see that weakness of the offensive line as something that Utah can really exploit.
I agree with you. I think the offense is good. The defensive line is going to get a lot of pressure, and they got a lot of pressure last week. There were more quarterback pressures on Penix than there were on Barnes. As much as we were watching that going, geez, Barnes is running for his life, there were 5 more quarterback pressures on Penix than there were on Barnes. Utah's defensive line is one of the best in the country at getting pressure, and Arizona likes to throw the ball. I mean, they're 24th nationally in passing yards. They're 70th, roughly 68th nationally in rushing yards. So they would rather throw the ball than run it. and their defense is not as good as I was expecting from their talent level and their coaching staff. I was expecting their defense to be closer to kind of the top end of the conference, and they're kind of stuck right in the middle. They're at 60s and 70s in most things other than run defense. And I looked at their opponents and thought, okay, well, maybe they just haven't faced any rushing yards. But they held Oregon State well below their average. They held UCLA well below their average. And Oregon State's a top 20 rushing offense, and UCLA is a top 20 rushing offense. And they held both of them down. So this is a team that is playing good run defense. Utah's going to have to throw the ball to win the game. They're going to have to throw the ball to win the game. Luckily, we've seen that against kind of average pass defenses, which Washington is kind of an average pass defense. Arizona State was kind of an average pass defense. Arizona is kind of an average pass defense. They don't get a ton of pressure, although they do get pretty good sacks. They don't get a ton of quarterback pressures. They just have gotten good at kind of finishing the job. Utah still has been able to throw the ball. So Utah being able to throw the ball against Washington with one of the best rush ends in the country, I think they probably can throw the ball against Arizona. But this Arizona team is better than everyone expected, and is very good. And this is a game that makes me nervous. Plus, I'm going to be there, and I tend to be bad luck.
That's a good game. Oh, that's right. That's right. You're down in Arizona. You know, there's a couple things that I think about that Utah has to clean up from the Washington game to be successful against Arizona. One was the penalties. Shocking to see Utah, one of the least penalized teams, almost get 100 yards in penalties. Washington still had more in penalties, but that was just very uncharacteristic of Utah. A lot of those were the holding penalties, some of the pass interferences that were questionable, but still uncharacteristic of Utah there. And then the 2 interceptions, they got to clean that up. Arizona doesn't get a lot of interceptions, doesn't get a lot of turnovers either, but neither did Washington. And Utah lost that battle, the turnover margin there in that game against Washington. So they got to clean that up. The other thing was, I think Utah was so focused on trying to stop the pass attack that Dillon for Washington, he was able to have a really good game, pick up some big yards rushing. And Arizona's got that Jonah Coleman. He's a good running back. He wasn't expected to be the starter at the beginning of the year. It was supposed to be Michael Wiley. But Wiley had some injuries. Coleman's a lot like Wiley. He's a good runner, good receiver. He's a weapon. So if you can erase a guy like Coleman, Utah's rush defense is still one of the best in the nation. So slow him down, kind of be more balanced that way, because that kind of seemed for Washington, while they were getting the pressure on Penix, then they'd still pick up those first downs because of Dillon. So they don't want to have that happen against Arizona if they want to have a chance to come away with a victory.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Coleman is far and away Pro Football Focus's favorite player on Arizona on either side of the ball. He's ranked in the 90s. He's excellent. He's getting, significant yards per carry. And luckily, he's kind of got Williams, Wiley. I mean, they've got a lot of running backs that they kind of sub in. And so he doesn't have to bear the whole load.
Yeah.
And so, they can run the ball. They just choose not to, like Washington and like USC.
USC's that way.
But Arizona is more willing to do it, I think, when necessary than either of those teams. So I agree with you. Utah needs to really remember that stopping the run is crucial, and get to the quarterback if necessary, if possible, but stop the run first. Yep. In fact, I was so sort of impressed by looking at Arizona that I wore my black shirt today, because Joseph, who is missing, sent us in his analysis. Joseph is expecting a touchdown win for Utah. His numbers have Utah pretty solid. We'll put up the graphic.
That surprises me, especially knowing that Utah right now is the underdog in this one.
Yeah, Joe. So you say Utah's the underdog. That's true depending on which casino you go to. You can get Utah by 1. You can get Arizona by 1. You can get a straight pick. By 1 just means, all right, if I lose by 1, I get my money back. So realistically, this is a pick game. If you want to bet Utah, find somebody that has Arizona favored. But Joseph runs 10,000 runs of this game, and Utah wins the game 63% of the time and covers +1 72% of the time. That's crazy value. Joseph explained to us kind of offline that anything over 60%, you want to bet that because you're going to make your money. That's how you make your money, is in those kind of comfortable areas if your model's that comfortable with the game. And in this one, he expects Utah to win and cover 70% of the time. And to cover +1 is a win. You have to win the game to cover +1. So realistically, this is a game where Joseph is expecting a comfortable win, and you can see there on his scoring margin, the middle of the bell curve is at about a 5-point win. He's expecting a comfortable Utah win, not easy, not no problems, but roughly a touchdown. He thinks Utah is significantly better than Arizona, even on the road. If this game were at home, he would have predicted Utah by 10.
So do you agree with him? Are you going with the same? What's your prediction?
I don't agree with him. I think it's going to be closer than that. I'm going to be the downer today. I think Utah. I think Utah wins. I think Utah's the better team. Utah's defense is so stifling, and I think Utah's the better team. And they're not afraid of going on the road. Washington's a tougher environment than Arizona. This will have more Utah fans in the stands. There's lots of Utah fans come down from Salt Lake or that just live in Arizona as opposed to in Seattle. And so I don't think this environment is as tough. I think Utah probably wins by 3. That's my expectation. I think it's a lower scoring game than the Washington game. Arizona plays good offense and not great, as good of defense, but they're slightly better on defense and slightly worse on offense than Washington. So I think 28-24, because it's hard to score 25. So we'll say 28-24 Utah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm actually right about there with you as well. Utah, if they have to depend mostly on the passing game, especially if Jaquindon Jackson's still hobbled, which he appears to be, I just don't see that offense clicking. I think that they were able to kind of catch a weaker Washington defense off guard. So I don't see Utah scoring as much as they did against Washington. I think kind of low. I'm going really low in this game. I think Utah's defense, just knowing how they do against younger players, I think this is one of those games where Fafita kind of gets to really see what a top-notch defense is like and get that pressure. And boy, when you see that, as good as Arizona State has been, in some situations, now the way that Utah just destroyed Arizona State, I kind of see the same thing happening. Fafita's excellent, but he's still young, still inexperienced, and that offensive line is going to struggle to protect him. So I see a final score of something around 21-17, still a close game, but I think really low score. That's Utah 21, Arizona 17.
I could battle. Yeah, I can definitely see that. The only reason I didn't pick kind of that more low scoring defensive battle, I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm over the line. I think the over-under's in the upper 40s. So yeah. I would take the over. But the reason I didn't is UCLA is the second best defense in the conference. And Oregon State's probably the third. Oregon may be the third, but Oregon State's probably the third. They're right. Those two are 3A and 3B. Arizona put up 27 against UCLA last week or 2 weeks ago, and they put up 27 against Oregon State. Now, both of those are at home, but they're at home this week too. Yeah. So I think they've got the ability to score. They've got the ability to move the ball. Fafita is very good. He's young, but he's very good. And opposed to ASU, who was down to their third string quarterback, Fafita is really kind of 1A. I know they were planning on Delora and kind of pulled him sort of quasi-injury, let's give the young kid a chance situation. Yeah. But
seems like Delora might be healthy now, and they're just choosing not to use him.
I think that's 100% correct. I think they've decided, look, we've got a freshman. He's playing at least as well as the senior, the junior. I mean, Delora's got another year.
Doesn't turn it over as often as Delora.
Doesn't turn it over as often as Delora. Makes smart choices. So I agree with you. Utah gets good pressure. They scare freshmen. They're good at confusing them. But I think Arizona's going to have the ability to put up points. because based on the last 3 weeks, I mean, Washington State's defense is terrible, but they're not 44 points terrible.
Yeah.
Colorado's defense is bad. They're worse than 34 points defense. So I'm surprised Arizona couldn't kind of pull away in that game. But I think Utah's got enough in the tank offensively to be able to keep up with them and to hold them down a little bit better. But I still think Arizona can easily get to 20, 24 points. Utah's going to need to make sure that they keep scoring. They can't stop and go, okay, we got our 21.
Yeah.
We're comfortable. Our defense can hold them to 21. Arizona is scoring well enough that Utah is going to need to see 28 points, I think, to feel like they're comfortably able to hang on to the lead. And special teams needs to not give up any nonsense. Utah almost lost 2 years ago to a terrible Arizona team in Arizona because of a blocked punt. They only won that game by 8.
Just bad special team play.
There's been some bad special team play the last couple of weeks. Kickoff returns, long punt returns. We almost had a blocked punt. Like, there's been some bad special teams play from the coverage units. And then the returners too. In the Washington game, I kept watching them take the ball out and get tackled at the 19.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't see the lane already, if you're not confident that you've got a shot at the 30 or the 35 or the 40, take that fair catch. We'll start at the 25, because that issue has popped up a lot just the last couple of weeks. Yeah. The first several weeks of the year, Utah fans were like, hey, special teams is looking great. Punting's great. Kicking's great. And the last couple of weeks, the return teams and the coverage teams have really suffered, and Arizona can take advantage of that if that happens again. So,
yeah, and in a pick 'em like this, that could be the difference. So, great point.
Yeah, I didn't look, and I should have. I didn't look at Arizona's kicker. I don't know how he is sort of on field goals. Utah, luckily, has been fantastic. The kicking game has been really good. Yes, there was a missed field goal, but overall, Utah's kicking team has been quite good. And I'm checking right now. He's 100% on extra points and 15 of 17 on field goals. So, and all 6 of his, all of his
12.
misses have been, all of his misses have been from over 40 yards.
Yeah, so he's 12 for 12 inside the 40. That's impressive.
Yep.
So
1 of 2 from 40 to 49 and 2 of 3 beyond 50. So this isn't a game that we can win hoping for a bad kicker to miss a field goal.
Yep, absolutely. Well, good insights. It's positive news for Ute fans to hear that they should be able to bounce back despite taking on another ranked team on the road. Seems like a little bit of a better matchup, but only time will tell.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It'll be a really good game. I'm disappointed that most of the country will miss it on the Pac-12 network, but I'll be there. If any Utah fans want to come say hello, just leave a comment and I'll find you in the game. So
that's great. Way to represent. All right.